But let's go ahead and get started and go over the 3 mistakes that you want to avoid when starting a childcare business. Okay, let me share my screen. All right, so let's figure out why you're here. Most likely, you are here because you want to start a childcare business, um, and you want to know what you're in for, and you want to avoid certain mistakes. Hence the title, 3 mistakes, right? You probably found this free class from watching this YouTube video that I put out a couple days ago that talked about whether or not this is a good time to start a childcare business. And if you did not see this video, if you missed it, and want to watch it, you can head on over to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Dani Christine. In this video, I did talk about a couple things that you could consider when trying to start up a childcare business, or when trying to decide whether or not this is a good time in general. This video covers some of my experiences of things that I wish I knew prior to starting. And then it made me realize that there are some common mistakes that I hear people talking about when they're getting started as well, which inspired me to do this class for you. Okay, so did you know that according to Grandview Research, the US childcare market size was valued at 54.3 billion US dollars in 2019, and is expected to expand at a compound annual growth rate of 3.9% from 2020 to 2027. So if one of the misconceptions I commonly hear about childcare specifically is that there's no money in this industry, you can't make a profit, if you're not going to be financially successful, and I just wholeheartedly disagree. Depending on the way in which you start up your childcare program and the way in which you operate and understand the industry in general, you can absolutely make money. Childcare is an essential service, and it's a service-based business that is, finally getting some recognition and appreciation that it has deserved for decades. Because of this pandemic, if you notice, in many states, childcare was deemed essential. If you can think back to 2020, maybe you're brand new, so you might not know that in 2020, a lot of programs did have to close down in certain areas or choose to close down, but there were many states that deemed it as an essential service. So you were allowed to keep your business open if you wanted to, of course, by choice, in order to continue providing that service to families that needed care because they were essential workers. So where do the doctors' kids go? Where do the firefighters and police kids go? If someone is working an essential job, they have children, who's going to take care of them? So at least in New York, we were honestly, I would say, encouraged to stay open. We were getting a lot of motivational messages and emails and encouragement and support from the state to try to keep our doors open. And especially even up to last year, we were dealing with school-age children who could not go to their school full time because schools were doing on and off weeks or A and B days. And where were those school-age kids going? They were going into childcare programs, and we were able to fill our locations, not just with preschool kids under the age of 6, but also school-age kids who needed care because their parents were at work. So when you consider all the investments that are currently being made into the childcare industry, I would definitely say that this industry can be where the money resides. You just have to know how to find it. And I would really strongly encourage you guys to watch until the end and stay until the end for something special that I will give you just for attending this class. Yes, you will get the replay and you'll find out what it is after, but if you are watching live, you will absolutely be able to take advantage first, which I would love for you all to do. So let's get into it. If you're not familiar with exactly who I am, my name is Dani Christine. If you're new to my email list and just received this webinar and don't really know much about me, I am a multi-site childcare business owner myself. I have 3 center-based locations in New York State. I currently live in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and I have been living here for about 3 years. Even though my childcare programs are in New York, I don't have any centers in Philadelphia. Sometimes I get asked, would I want to start a program here? Is that why I moved here? No, I didn't move here with intentions of starting a program. I have looked into it just because I was here. And of course, childcare is my life. So I was curious. So I looked up regulations. I've looked at places, but for me, I just prefer to continue expanding in New York first and see where it takes me from there. I also have a consulting agency, Dani Christine Inc., that runs childcaresites.com. So I do provide individual one-on-one consulting. You can book me for a consultation if you go to childcaresites.com/Dani Christine, and we can get on a video call just like this, but it will be me and you privately, and we could talk about your business goals and needs and answer whatever questions you have for a 45-minute session. And I also create digital content. Like I mentioned before, I have a YouTube video that I put out a couple days ago because that is something I routinely do. I create YouTube videos on youtube.com/Dani Christine related to childcare. I talk about my experiences in childcare and both the good, bad, and ugly, and just what I have gone through to give some insight, because when you hear stories of what other people experience, that can help you in your journey, right? Or give you things to consider and think about. That little canvas behind me is an image of my podcast that I host with Gigi, who I believe I mentioned earlier on in this session. She is my company's operations manager, and we started a podcast together about 2 years ago. I actually should find out when we started it so we can celebrate an anniversary. But on that podcast, we really just and it's called Childcare Sights and Sounds. We really just talk about our day-to-day experiences operating our childcare programs and dive deeper into that unedited for the most part. And so that podcast is starting back up for another season in a couple of weeks. So definitely find it on your favorite podcast streaming platform. All right, so that's a little bit about me. Also, I did start out as a family daycare provider. I had a group family daycare in Queens, New York, back in 2014. And then in 2017 is when I got my first center-based location licensed. In 2020, I got my second center-based location license. And in 2021, this past September, is when we moved in and expanded into our third location. Okay. Now let's talk about you. I'm curious to know about your experience and your journey where you are right now. So we've created these fictitious characters, right? I'll call them Nervous Nancy and Prepared Pam. Nervous Nancy has been thinking about starting a childcare business for years. She currently works at a different job that she's kind of comfortable with, but she really just wants to move on and follow her dreams. But she is worried about the hearsay from what she believes due to other people's experiences could happen if she leaves her job and tries to start a childcare business by herself. Prepared Pam, on the other hand, has been taking courses, taking classes, doing consultations, doing her own research, studying the market in her area, and is ready to step out and follow her dreams. And I'm super curious as to which one you guys are at. Hopefully there's a lot of prepared Pams here, especially if you, yes, okay, I see Luz is prepared Pam. Erica, I know that I see you're nervous, Nancy, but hopefully by the end of this, we can get you to be a prepared Pam. Someone said that they're in between. Derek is in between. Veronica is a little bit of both. And I get it. I completely get it. When I first started out, I was before a home daycare provider, I was working as a teacher in a different childcare program in my hometown. And I was very comfortable at that job. I was, to be quite honest, back then, I'll even share. I think back then, I started in 2010, I was getting paid like $14, $15 an hour around that time, around that pay rate. And that was from like 2010 to 2014, right? Minimum wage right now in New York is $15 an hour. Back then, I honestly don't even know what it was, but we were clearly being paid way above minimum wage, and very comfortable. It really wasn't intensive program where I had a lot of responsibilities. I was able to have a flexible schedule and work while I was in school. I started that job when I was a senior in high school, and then I left when I was a junior in college. So I was a college student and working full time at that job, comfortable, making good money. And even though I was excited, I really wanted to move on and work for myself. I was nervous because I was just comfortable. But I was also excited because I knew what the possibilities were. And that's really what pushed me and motivated me to step out on faith and leave, even though I didn't have, I didn't have all these resources like you guys have today. I didn't have like, or at least I didn't know it existed, right? I'm sure there was somebody making videos on YouTube or doing coaching programs. When I first started, I didn't know any of that existed. I was very lonely. I was by myself. So I was also in between. I was prepared, Pam, because I'm like, I'm excited, I'm ready to go, but also nervous Nancy because what could happen? So my goal by the end of this is to get you to a point where you're leaning more towards prepared Pam. Okay. I want to start off by talking about yesterday. I did an Instagram live. If you're not following me on Instagram, my handle is Dani Christine Consulting, at Dani Christine Consulting on Instagram. And I went on live, I think it was yesterday. Actually, maybe it was Thursday, talking about, I was inspired to go on live because I had just come from visiting New York, looking at programs that I could potentially expand into because we are now looking for our fourth location. And God willing, we will be in one by the end of this year. And I saw a place that was fully furnished. Like we went to two different centers on Thursday, and one of them was a huge facility, 12,000 square feet, fully furnished. And I'm wondering what's going on. Like, why is this place currently set up as a daycare and have all this beautiful furnishings and fixtures and full industrial kitchen? Like everything was already ready to go. What happened? I'm thinking that it was a program that was there that for a while and closed down, but I noticed like everything was brand new. So the brokers ended up telling me that the person that was going to be starting up, there was already somebody here trying to start up a childcare program, and they were in the space for 2 years, setting it up, getting it ready, and she ended up not winning an award for a contract with the city that she was trying to go after. And that's why she left. Now, something tells me that I don't have the full story, because what I just can't fathom just walking away from all of that money spent. I'm talking 12,000 square feet, 5 or 6 classrooms, probably more, huge community room and like indoor gym, everything fully furnished, and you're just going to walk away because of one contract. I don't know if that was the end all be all, or if that person just has money like that and it's whatever. But if it were me, I would have tried to work it out some other way. Like there's subsidy agencies, there's private pay clients, like, and I don't know this person's business, so I don't want to judge. I'm not judging. But one big mistake was the fact that all of that furniture was purchased and not for no reason, especially if you're just going to up and leave and walk away from it. It's not like, if I'm not mistaken, it's not like you can return everything. I believe the intention might be for that person to pick up all the furniture eventually and move it to wherever they're going to be opening. But the brokers were telling me she likely just tried to sell it to whoever comes in and takes over again, which makes a lot of sense and is super convenient. So if you find a space that is fully furnished, which we've been fortunate to have that experience in 2 out of the 3 centers that we have, where they were previously daycares before and all the furniture was still there. So we didn't have to buy much in the beginning. So that's my bonus tip, actually. And maybe I should have saved this for the end, but I really just, it made more sense to start off with this bonus tip. So furniture, my experience, this mistake that you could avoid is to purchase furniture slowly or in discounted ways when you're beginning. Not because you're afraid that it's not going to work out and you're going to have to walk away, like in the situation that I just mentioned, but because you will have a need to spend money elsewhere in the beginning, like, for example, on marketing, or possibly if you're trying to set up your program in a certain way, like with infants or toddlers, for example, some places require that you have a sprinkler system, and that can be pretty expensive. If you don't know, daycare furniture is costly. For one of these tables was probably like $500. Cubbies can run you $1,000, depending on where you buy them and like how big they are. It is expensive to furnish a classroom. And what I have done over the years is open one classroom at a time, 1 or 2 classrooms at a time, depending on how much enrollment I'm expecting to get at that, at the start. So like, in our 3rd location that we just opened in September, this space actually was not fully furnished. The previous daycare owner that was in there did take all of her furniture back, and it was like freshly coated, painted, and like kind of renovated in there. The landlord did some work, I believe. So it was empty. So instead of just, splurging on all this furniture, we wanted to make sure that we were set up properly and had systems in place and had money allocated towards marketing, and that we also had the enrollment in order to need the furniture. I see Alicia asking, do you have to be fully furnished to open? And in my case, in New York State, maybe New York State is different from New York City. So if you're watching and you're from New York and you're in one of the 5 boroughs, possibly in New York City, maybe you have to have furniture in each classroom. But if you're outside the city, no. What will happen is you'll get and in other states as well, I know that in some states, it's also not required to have furniture in every single room right at the beginning. What happens is you get the license for the amount of kids that you have enough equipment for. So if I'm saying I open one classroom at a time, I will furnish one classroom, right? And I'll get the license instead of, if let's say it's a building for 70 kids, I'll get a license for just 18 kids for now, since that's the room that is ready. And then once I'm ready to open another classroom, I'd give my licensor a week or 2 advance notice, like, hey, I'm getting ready to open this classroom. I buy all the furniture at that point. she has asked me for pictures, and I send her pictures of it set up. And then since it was already measured out during the inspection, all she has to do is now give me a new license that has the additional capacity of children. You understand? So it's not like I am risking having to go through the whole entire licensing process again. It's just as simple as letting licensing know, and they will take pictures or ask you for pictures, or they will come and do another visit probably of just that room. So that's the way that I have done it over the years. That has worked for me. And also, furniture aside, sometimes that happens with teachers as well. We will only get licensed for the number of classrooms and the capacity for those classrooms per each qualified teacher that we have. So there are certain qualifications that your teachers have to have in order to be considered a lead. And in order to have a classroom open, there has to be a designated lead teacher. So if I have 6 classrooms, but I only have 1 or 2 teachers, I'm only going to get licensed for the capacity of those 1 or 2 classrooms. So another bonus that's not in here, another bonus mistake that you could avoid is making sure that you can double check with your licensing agency to see if it's mandatory for you to have all teachers for licensing in general, but I can't imagine that that's necessary. So something to avoid is hiring a whole staff and you have no kids enrolled in the beginning. So don't overspend on furniture and don't overspend on those teachers. And let's just say you're in a place where furniture is required, right? You do have to have furniture for all classrooms to get any sort of license, which I highly doubt. So triple check with your license agency if that is actually necessary. But if you are, or let's say you want to, you don't have to buy everything brand new. You can join groups on Facebook. I'm a part of a couple different groups in New York on Facebook where they share like, oh, my daycare is closing down, or I don't need this anymore, or this wasn't the right thing for me, and they sell it to each other. So try to join your local area's Facebook group and see. I see those postings like at least once or twice a week. Somebody is selling something, and I'm talking about big pieces of furniture, or a whole daycare is closing down and they want to get rid of their stuff. Someone posted the other day a whole center was closing down and giving everything away for free. And that's been my experience as well. I was contacted by a center a couple years ago that was closing down, and they were just giving all of their stuff away, which I guess if you're going out of business and maybe the business was successful, you're not worried about the money, and now you got to worry about paying to get this stuff out. No, come get my stuff. So just check on Facebook. You could also check on Craigslist. I know that sounds crazy, but when I first started my home daycare, I did get all my stuff from Craigslist. And I was lucky enough to find a small daycare center that was going to be starting up and didn't end up starting their program and needed to quickly get rid of their stuff. So I was able to buy all of their stuff for a really good rate because it was listed on Craigslist. I see Veronica asking, how do you know what age classroom to open first? For example, infant room, toddler room. And that's a really good question, Veronica. The best way to find that out is as soon as you have control of your property, like you've signed your lease or you have some sort of site control, or let's say you bought the property, whether this is a home daycare or a center, it doesn't matter. Once you have control of the property, you should begin advertising. Even if you don't know when your license is going to come, you should put up a coming soon banner, right? You don't have to promise any dates of when you'll be open because you really don't know for sure. Don't want to make any promises like that and start off with a bad reputation. So you can get a coming soon banner, create a website immediately. As soon as you have your address, create a website, create your business entity, and create social media pages and start generating interest for your program. What you can do is create a form on your website, or a phone number that people can call asking for information, and collect that data, collect information from parents of what they're looking for, when they're looking for care to start, how old their children are. So when people call us, we definitely ask for email addresses, phone numbers, and children's date of birth, so we can put them in our pipeline of kids that are coming into our program. You can do the same thing even as you're just beginning. So if you're trying to figure out what classrooms to open first, that's one thing you can consider. Who is contacting me more? Are you in an area where there is free pre-K and there's a whole lot of empty slots and parents are going to go to those free pre-K programs? So you're really only getting calls for infants and toddlers and maybe early 3-year-olds. Then you know not to first open a pre-K class for 4-year-olds, because those kids are likely not going to come to you, especially without you having any sort of established presence in the neighborhood. Or are you in an area, like let's say by a public school building, and you notice that the public school district does not have any after school programs, and you know that you can meet that need, there's a demand for after school. Maybe you can open a school age room first. So you can consider the demand, right? Or you can also consider what's going to make the most sense for you financially. Opening an infant classroom probably is not, most likely, highly likely, will not support your bills in the beginning. I don't believe you should start with opening an infant room and just the infant room alone first. Because that's not going to help you with covering your payroll and your mortgage or rent expenses and utilities. But because infant rooms usually have a lower capacity and a higher or a more strict ratio, I should say. So for example, an infant classroom in New York, you can only have 8 children, 8 babies, and you have to have 2 teachers for those 8 babies. So the ratio is 1-4. Whereas if I were to open a preschool classroom for 3-year-olds, I could have up to 18 children and only need 3 teachers for those 18 children. So the ratio is 1-7. So those are 2 things you could consider when trying to figure out which classroom to open first. You could go by the demand of who is calling you the most, or you can go by what makes the most sense for you financially to start up. But my first mistake that I want to highlight is people choosing the wrong location. When you are considering where to open, you really want to do what's called a competitive analysis. That could be you looking at the other programs in the area to see what sorts of services they offer, how much they're charging, what the demand is. If you know that you want to you want to open a very specific program, like let's say you want to do only infants and toddlers, just since we were talking about that. You want to be an infant and toddler program, but you are looking in an area where there is a ton of infant and toddler programs that already exist. You're going to be starting off in an area where you have a lot of competition immediately, which might not be a deterrent. I don't think that you should try to be the only one of whatever it is that you're trying to be, because think about all the different products and services we use on a daily basis. Look at how many nail salons are on each corner doing the same sort of nails, or look at how many brands of toilet paper there are that have been around for decades and decades. Like, people are going to have their preferences one way or another, but if you're trying to be strategic about like having a really successful launch of your business initially, maybe don't do exactly what most people are doing. And I had a consultation with someone on, I believe it was Wednesday, and she was talking about how she wants to open a Spanish immersion preschool in the county that she lives because she doesn't see any Spanish immersion preschools there. And, you know, that's a passion of hers. And I was like, that's a really great idea. You see that it does not exist. To your knowledge, it does not exist in your county, and people are probably looking for it and going to other counties trying to find it. So if you come around, yes, you're probably going to have a very specific population, a niche of people that want to use your service. So it might eliminate a lot of people, but it will bring the perfect ideal family for you. So you could do that. There's also, you want to consider the demographics of the population. So again, if you're trying to open a very specific program, like for example, a program that accepts childcare subsidies, like government subsidies from the county or the city or what have you, you could open, or I should say you should open in an area that might be, you know, on the lower income side, because the people that live in that area will probably need childcare subsidies, and you're likely going to fill up your program with those subsidized children in care. I see Jackie is saying I'm opening a drop-in program, right? So a drop-in program, maybe Jackie, you might want to open in an area where, like maybe by a hospital or something, where parents have varying a varying work schedule. It's not fixed, and they don't know when they need work, and they have to go. They can't sign up for a consistent full-time slot of childcare because they're not sure when they're going to need you, but they know they'll need you, just not the specific hours. So having a drop-in program is great for that if you have an inconsistent schedule. For me, on the other hand, we're not in an area near a hospital, and we don't have a population of parents that do not have consistent work schedules. So I don't do drop-in care at all. Like, we don't accept anybody that is not registered as a 5-day-a-week child, pretty much. And another thing you want to consider when trying to avoid choosing the wrong location is not just the actual location itself, but the building, the facility that you're going to be opening in, whether that's a home or a center. You want to make sure that it is in compliance with your state regulations, right? So with state regulations, there's usually a large section that talks about what is mandatory in order to be in compliance for running a childcare program. It states things like egress or emergency exits or evacuation routes. Like, you want to make sure that those basic things are available in your program, or at least understand that if it's not there, that's a piece of probably a big chunk of money that you're going to have to spend on renovations. Like, if you don't have a front door and a back door, or a front door and a side door, or whatever is considered compliant emergency exit in your area. If you don't have it, you're talking about knocking into an exterior wall to add another door. It's not impossible, but you're probably going to have to get building permits and spend money on an architect and spend money on the actual contractors and workers doing those things in order just to make the building compliant, right? Which is why personally I prefer going into centers that previously had licensed programs in them, because I know that at the very basic level, there's nothing wrong with the compliance of the building in most cases. But there are many, many people who do successfully start up from the ground up, building their own programs as well, or renovating a different type of property and going through the zoning. So don't let my preference discourage you from the location that you would prefer. It is all about location for the most part. So as long as you pick the right one, and your building is, you understand what it would take to get your building in compliance and you're financially ready to make that investment, go for it. The next mistake that I really struggled with in the beginning was being a yes man. And what I mean by that is saying yes to everything. Parents have a lot of requests. They have a lot of needs. They can be hard to deal with at times. And if you're not like me personally, I don't have the strongest personality to deal with parents that have strong personalities. So in the beginning, I was, very much a pushover, like to just keep it all the way 100. Like I was a pushover. I was saying yes to whatever parents wanted. And on top of like kind of being a pushover, I really just wanted the income. I wanted families to come and come into my program and not have a reason why they should leave, or why they shouldn't enroll. So I was getting certain requests, like, and when I was doing home daycare, I was doing transportation. And I remember there was this one little girl who went to a school that was literally, it took me 25 minutes to drive to her school every day to go get her. I would drive 25 minutes. And maybe if you're in a rural area, that's not a big deal for you. But I was in Queens, New York, where I was probably passing 30 different public schools on the way to go pick up this little girl every day and bring her back to my program. And I did that for months. There was also a time where my program was 6:30 to 6:30, and I had one parent that asked me multiple times if he could start dropping off his child at 5:30 instead of 6:30. And what do you think I said? I said yes. And I do think I charged him a little extra for that, but like I hated it. It was not worth the money. I'm already working 12 hours a day, and now you want me to get up out of my bed at 5 a.m. to come downstairs and just stare at this one child for an hour until others start coming. And I probably did that, I want to say, for like a good 6 months. Like it was a while. And maybe, that wouldn't be your experience. Maybe that's not something that you would hate, because I do know that some childcare providers are very prideful about the fact that because they're a home daycare provider, they can be more flexible and they can do things like that. That's not the direction that I wanted to go in, just to be honest. Like I did not want to be flexible about my policies. I wanted my program to run a certain way, and I just wanted everybody to respect it that way. But I wasn't respecting it that way. I was allowing people to come in and tell me what I'm going to do in my program. And it took me a while to get out of that. And I don't want you to make the same mistakes. Definitely put systems in place to have policies and a set of standard of procedures, and stick to them. If you don't stick to your policies, why should the parents? Why should your employees? Once you do get to that point of having employees, why would they care to stick to your policies if you don't respect them yourself? So I would try to avoid, in the best way possible, you being a yes man like I was, because it's hard to say no once you so often say yes. And even making exceptions, like we'll do it for this one time, they're not listening to that part. They're not going to listen to that part. As long as they get the yes that they're looking for that one time, they're going to have the audacity to ask again and get upset with you, even though you made it clear it was only going to be one time. And I understand that certain emergencies happen, or certain things happen where you might have a really great relationship with the parent and you want to be nice and give them what they need. And fine, if you literally want to take the risk and make an exception for this one time, do it and make it clear that it's one time and let it be a one-time exception. But I would try to avoid it at all costs, to be honest, if I were you. So don't make the mistake of being a yes man. Okay. And my third and final mistake that I want to talk about is piss poor planning. And what I mean by that is not being as prepared as you possibly can be to move forward with this business venture of yours. Whatever type of modality you're opening, whether it's a home daycare or a center-based location or a school-age program or a 24-hour program or multiple locations at once or a virtual preschool, whatever it is that you're trying to start up, you need a plan for it. You need to create a financial plan. You need to create a staffing plan. You need to create an enrollment building plan. There's no maybe there is a formal format in which you can create a business plan, I guess I should say, to sum all of those things up, creating a business plan. I never created a formal business plan, but what I did do was take a lot of notes, do a lot of research, and make sure that I understood what I was going to do and when I was going to do it. And when I made a mistake, I registered that mistake in my mind, or I sometimes documented it down so that I could make sure I don't make that mistake again. For example, when we opened our first center-based location, we did a open house event. Like, I wanted the community to come in and see the program so that we can start getting new enrollments. First of all, my biggest mistake was not really advertising during the startup process. Like I mentioned, you should do a few minutes ago, we did not advertise at all. We just waited until we were licensed, and then we did an open house, pretty much, which was not a great idea. If you want people to come to your open house, you got to start advertising beforehand, or some people will call it a grand opening. And actually, maybe that is what I called it. I probably called it a grand opening, not an open house. That makes more sense. But it was all that I did was boost an ad on Instagram like a week or two before. And really, the only people that showed up were families with kids that were walking by the building at the time. And it was a decent turnout because mostly it was families from my home daycare that came out to support, but I knew they weren't going to enroll because it was too far away. And also my literal family was there, family and friends. But I wish that it would have been filled with people that were actually prospective families looking for childcare. And it could have been, had I had a marketing plan and made sure to follow it, right? But I didn't have that. Also, an example of not planning efficiently was with my first home daycare location. I quickly learned how to go through licensing in a better way, because I remember having to fill out in New York, when you're opening a home daycare program, they send you this thick orange booklet. It's a really thick booklet of physical pages it's not even like well, actually they are perforated pages that you can rip out, but it's a lot of pages in a booklet, right? It's not online yet, if I'm not mistaken. For centers it is, but I believe even now to this day, they're still sending out booklets for daycare applications. And I was writing my answers to the questions for the application inside the actual booklet pages, making mistakes, and now having to cross things out. It looks sloppy, having to write out a lot of answers. Now it looks fraudulent. I was just so in a rush to get this over with, and excited, I guess, that I was just writing my answers in, not using pencil, not drafting, not anything, just going for it. And then I made a lot of mistakes. Also, I turned in the booklet and didn't have pages saved. So when licensing, as they sometimes do, comes back and says, oh, you never gave me blah, blah, blah. I know darn well I gave you that paper and you lost it, but okay. now I have to wait for them to send me a new page or figure out how I can get them the information. No, I don't do that anymore. When I'm opening a new program and it comes to paperwork that I have to write on or something I have to fill out, I'm creating a copy of that blank of the original, and I'm writing on a copy, and I'm giving copies after making copies of the copy that I already wrote on, if that makes sense. I'm keeping copies of every blank page and every page that I fill out, so that if I hand something in and they say that they lost it or I never handed it in, I have another copy of it already completed, so I don't have to waste my time. Or if I did do something incorrectly, I now still have the original version unaltered that I can make another copy of and just rewrite it. So things like that have really helped me to stay organized. Also, you need to create systems as soon as possible. I didn't have systems when I first started my home daycare business or even my center. Like, I didn't know what sort of systems I should put in place. It was very challenging for me at times, but after realizing that I needed to put something in place to make sure that I got my tasks done as an administrator, as the leader of the program, and not constantly get distracted by what's going on the day-to-day basis, I had to put systems in place, and I did. And also make sure that you involve the people that are going to be working with you on your team. If you're going to hire an assistant for your home daycare, or if you're going to hire teachers or administrative staff for your center or your school age program, make sure that you involve them in your licensing and startup process. I would suggest that if you're starting a larger like center-based location, even before you are licensed, hire somebody, hire an office assistant, or hire a teacher that I would suggest maybe a teacher that is looking to grow within the industry, and you can train up to be an administrator one day if that's what you're looking to do, or if your program is big enough to support having an administrative staff, or if you just choose to invest in having an administrative team, regardless of the size of your program, hire somebody that can be with you from the beginning. I take so much pride in having one of my center directors has been my employee. She was my very first employee from the beginning when I had a home daycare. So she's been with me since I started in 2014 and literally worked every position up. She was an assistant in my home daycare. Then she kind of helped with management of my home daycare while I was expanding into a center. Then she came on as a teacher at my center. Then she was a UPK teacher at my center in one of our district classrooms. And then she became an admin assistant, and now she's the director. She knows all of those roles. She knows me well, and she knows what I expect, and she delivers excellently every time. And that's because honestly, to be quite transparent, at that point, it was luck. That was God who gave me her, because I didn't know what I was doing when I first opened. But now I try to look for that. I say during our interview process that, what are your goals? Like, what are you, and to ask them to be honest with me. Do you plan to be in childcare for a long time? Like, and, or are you looking to move into another industry? Are you looking to advance? If I see they have a lot of qualifications, I ask them like, oh, are you considering going into administration? I tell them that we are looking for a team of people who want to grow as we grow. And that's because we promote our team from within. We try to get our assistant teachers to become lead teachers, and our lead teachers to take on leadership roles within the centers, and then eventually promote them to become admin support, or an admin team member, or even a director. And as we grow, that's how I continue to do it. And when we have company positions like Gigi, for example, she oversees the operations at all of our centers. and helps with the startup of each location. So find you someone like that especially in the beginning. And it might take a few people to go through, but once you have the person that you have that is reliable, delegate tasks to them. Don't just, don't just throw them in a classroom and have them start teaching, but train them in the way that what you need support with, and give them things to do. Even if you can do it by yourself, it is great to know that you have already observed them working in a leadership capacity or an administrative capacity. So if you ever cannot do something, or if you ever have to be out of the program, you have someone there that knows what you know, and you trust that they're going to do the right thing. So make sure you have those plans in place, your operational plans, your financial plans, your communication plans with your staff, and also with licensing. Make sure that you keep communication lines open as much as possible with your licensor, and try to stay positive with them, even if they're telling you something that you don't like. Create those systems and delegate. And then that leads me to my last thing that I wanted to bring up before I let you guys go. The surprise that you can take advantage of if you would like. I am finally launching my very first coaching program. It is called Childcare Startup 120. It is an 8-week group coaching program where I share the exact strategies that I have used to open all 3 of my childcare centers in less than 4 months. And honestly, even with my home daycares, now thinking about it, I also got those open in less than 4 months each time. You can find more information here on childcaresites.com/startup120. You can see more information about what the program offers, what you'll get when you join. It is my very first coaching program, so I want to be very clear with everybody that participates, and make sure that it is an intimate group where I can give everybody the individual attention that they need, right? So there is an application process that you have to go through, and I will be processing applications in the order in which they are received. So that is why I'm saying it's beneficial for you to be listening to this information live right now, because you can head on over to childcaresites.com/startup120 in order to apply today if you're interested, because I am getting ready to begin going through the applicants that we currently have and start issuing out acceptances. The program is going to run from April 4th to May 27th, so that 8-week period. And we are cutting off applications after March 11th for this cohort. I might do this program again, if it feels like a good fit for everybody, and, depending on the feedback that I get from this first cohort. So I'm really excited to be working with some of you guys really closely. Erica, I see that you submitted your application. I am going to be reviewing it today and hopefully getting back to you today. Thank you so much for applying. It is so exciting and nerve-wracking, to be quite honest. I'm a nervous Nancy for this coaching program, because you guys, I've been doing consulting for years, and I've only ever done the one-on-one 45-minute virtual sessions, but I realized that I could give so much more and give so much more time if I just got everybody together. I see Alicia is asking for the website. It's down here at the bottom, childcaresites.com/startup120. You do have to specifically put in that /startup120. If you just go to childcaresites.com, you're not going to find it. Thank you so much, Sylvia, for putting that in the chat box. I can always count on you for the support. So Sylvia has dropped it in the chat box for anybody that is interested in applying. Once you click the apply now button, you're going to be taken to a Google form to fill out a couple of questions so I can get to know you better. Again, this coaching program is really something that I put in place to give more individualized attention for a longer period of time to help you through your startup process. So please do not get deterred by the lengthy questions in that Google form. I really just want to make sure I have a full understanding of your learning style, your goals, the research that you've already done, and really dive deeper into your program. Also, I'm super excited about it being a group coaching program where you'll also get a mixed variety of private consults with me each week, but also group sessions with the whole entire cohort because, again, when I first started, I had nobody. I was by myself, crying myself to sleep a lot of nights because I knew that there were things that I was doing wrong and I just didn't have anybody to bounce ideas off of. I started when I was 20 years old, so it's not like any of my friends were even doing like I had no entrepreneurial friends at that time to even relate remotely to what I was doing, let alone friends in the childcare industry. So having this cohort of people that are going to be doing exactly what you're doing. You can exchange numbers and contact information and bounce ideas off of each other, celebrate your wins together, and support each other through difficult times. I'm really trying to create that, that vibe with this coaching program. So please go ahead and apply if you're interested. I will begin processing applications as they come in. And like I mentioned, application submissions end on March 11th. So I hope to see all of you guys as applicants. I'm going to send you the video replay of this free class. So if you missed any parts of it, don't worry, you can rewatch it. I hope that these mistakes are something that have really informed you so that you don't make them on your own. And I hope you have a great weekend. All right. Thank you so much to everybody that has dropped in the chat that they have applied. We are congratulating Jackie for something. Let me see. Oh, Jackie got the keys to her building on Tuesday. I'm going to need all the help I can get during this licensing process. Yes, Jackie. Yes. Congratulations. That's so exciting. That is so exciting. I got to find you on Instagram so I can follow your journey. Or I'll probably see you in the coaching group too. And thank you guys for being so supportive in the chat. Kay says her second location is opening on Tuesday. That is amazing, Kay. It's so great to see the company that you build grow from one location to two. That was an unbelievable feeling for me. Just know you're in for you're in for a lot when you move into another location. Managing two, sometimes they get jealous of each other. I'm so happy for you guys. Let me see. What else are we celebrating? Anybody else have wins that they would like to share before we go? Already has happened. Kay says people, they're already getting jealous of each other. Thank you so much, Mary. Mary says, I always enjoy following you and I learn something new each time. I appreciate those kind words. And with that, I'm going to end it out. It has been exactly 1 hour. I'm sorry for starting 10 minutes late, but I appreciate those of you that still joined in. Hidred, if I'm saying your name correctly, you can book a consultation with me by going to childcaresites.com/Dani Christine. I just dropped that in the chat box. Or you can go back to the email where this webinar link was sent to you and click the book consultation button at the bottom of the email. I hope you guys have a great Saturday. Get out, get some sun, and have a great, restful, or productive weekend, whatever you're trying to do. Bye, guys.